Yo, 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 welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the space between ideas. I'm Blank Gates. Thank you for joining me here on my lovely YouTube channel as per usual. I'm trying to learn French these days, so that's why I make like trying to use the accent sometimes. All right, so the audio is working good. Now, the thing is that, well, what's going on with this? What's this thing? What's this thing that I'm doing? What's this project? What is it all about? Now, one thing for sure is that I've been telling people that I teach students, like 400 students. And oh my goodness. And in the process of teaching um, or coaching or whatever you want to call it, hold on a second. All right. I got a little bit of allergies here. In the process of teaching, I create a document for each student or each coachee. I prefer the word student. It just, coachy coach. I don't really buy it. Like, I'm a coach. What do you mean you're a coach? I'm gonna coach you. What are you gonna coach me? You're gonna teach me. Like, why do we add all these extra words in our vocabulary? Like, what do they actually mean? Do you know? Do you know what they mean? All right, now, so let's get a little bit more personal. Let's talk about Mr. Blaine. What does he do with his time all day long? I would say, in general, right now with life, I'm working harder. I'm doing more than I've ever done before. And, it's like, so by definition, yeah, I love when people say that. By definition, I need to become more, what do you call it? I don't know, like more. Share my entire screen. Maybe that'll be easier. I need to become like, I need to use my time better. Okay, that looks fine. All right, so like this is one way to manage your time with little icons. All right, so we can see up here we got Arrowhead app. So I was using ChatGPT and Cursor. That's actually changed. Now I'm using Gemini and Firebase Studio, which is weird because um so I moved from like a Microsoft startup, which is ChatGPT, and what's Cursor? I don't even know what Cursor is. And I don't know, like, what happens when everybody else can do it just as good as you? What happens when Google can do it just as good as you? That's a problem because Google is like a mega corporation. It's like this quasi government organization. It's like the soft arm of the American government. And what are you going to fight? You're going to fight the US government? I mean, like, step in line, man. Step in line, or you have to fight like directly across the battle line. But there's, like they say, if you're not with me, you're against me. So I could just imagine that over the years, I mean, Cursor, yeah, they did really great so far. I hope they continue to grow. But the thing is that Google is going to continually roll out new systems to integrate. Like, I keep getting this, I don't even know. Well, it's gone now. Let's jump back into the main menu. So when I open up my project, it's going to set up the development environment. I had a lot of problems yesterday. I didn't make a video, but I did do some work. I had significant problems with Google rolled out some kind of new feature where they have like a tab which allows you to here it is. So it says, get started by customizing your environment defined in the .idx dev nix file with the tools and IDE extensions you'll need for your project. So then you click this thing and it's talking about system tools, extensions, app preview. It's mainly the app preview I had a problem with. And it gives you like this new tab where you can see your app in real time. So, uh, huh, yeah, maybe this would have been useful. You know what they really need to do is they need to like have this like connected within the system already. Like, would this documentation have changed the way you dealt with the issues we faced with the web tab inside the IDE? Question paste. Because like yeah, so they send you this thing and then what happens is it's going to reconfigure your workspace, which is fine, okay. And then what? And then it's going to like create a tab so you can see your app right next to this Gemini thing. Now, obviously, for coders, you're also going to want to have like things like you want to be able to see your files. But for me, seeing this page is completely useless because I have no idea what that stuff is. So I just hide it. Like, why do I need that page? I don't need it. The search feature, I don't know. I don't read code, so why do I need that? This thing, I have no idea what this is. Committing your changes. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with that. I don't know. Run and debug. Run. All debug extensions are disabled. Enable a debug extension or extensions. So I guess I got 9 extensions. That's what it looks like. I just asked it to like, I just asked it what extensions it wanted. Okay, let's continue using the separate browser tab for testing as it's working reliable for us. We can defer further investigation of why integration web tab failed in explicit configuration. Please proceed to the testing of objective scoreboard module, including drop-down option editor using the separate browser where the application is running correctly. I mean, okay. I'm gonna close this up. And what does that mean? Firebase Studio? What's that? What's new? Full release notes? I don't even know what this stuff is. Google integrations. I don't know. Did I do any? So this is what I was just talking about, like web hosting, deploy, run in the cloud, add Gemini API using Google Maps, add secret message manager. There's a bunch of integrations you can add. Then you got your SQL. We're not using that right now, apparently. Yeah, there's stuff that's added on the side of my screen which wasn't there before. If you go to my earlier videos, then you'll know that this stuff was not there in the past. Anyways, leaves us with 2 windows, and this window is useless because what I'm talking about is a dialogue. Like, this is why I'm confused about why I can't do this directly in ChatGPT, right? Maybe it's just because ChatGPT is not an IDE. This IDE seems to be based on Studio Code, but I don't need any of that because that's like has nothing to do with me. I don't know coding. I don't know anything about coding. All I know about is talking to this programmer. In fact, at this point, I'm just wondering, like, when are they going to roll out the voice feature so I can just talk directly to the Firebase Studio? I know there's some workarounds for that, but I mean, it's going to come out pretty quick, right? Where I'm just stop typing and I can just start talking. All right, so what you talking about, Willis? So the thing is that this is all the stuff I'm doing. I just wanted to quickly return to this subject. So you can see I got my previous students in here, and then I got like Ahmad, Alexandra, Alex, and Amber, and Baptiste, and me. This is my own Christian, and somebody named Di. Dorota, the younger one, Emily, Francois, Ginadu, Yulia, Iliana, Lucky, Maruna, Massimo, Nafia, Nikita, Rados. Yeah, ready. This is ready. Roboslav, Sergio, Stefano, Tatiana, Victoria, Voldemort, Zelensky. So you see, I'm getting like, what is this? Like Ukraine and what's Victoria? I don't even. Where's Victoria from? Which Victoria? There's more than one Victoria. Tatuana is from Latvia, and this girl Stefano, she was from like somewhere around Mexico. Sergio, can't remember. Something like Lithuania, maybe. Poland, Russia, Turkey, Italy, Ukraine, China. I mean, it's like it's interesting because there's like only certain countries where the country's making enough money that a student can afford my rate. And so and then also that they're like open enough to communicate because you have to have a high degree of openness in order to talk about your business and what's happening in your business. And I just created a whole set of different types of tools. Usually, how I started this whole progress is I would just take some thinking tool and then I would paste it into their file. Each of these people have like a file. So everyone has like a to do list. And then in their to do list, I was using that file in order to help people work on the things that they're working on. Now, the question is, well, what about you? What do I do? So I also have a to do list. And for me, the easiest form of like planning is if you know what you need to do, like if it's already in your head. For example, with the Arrowhead app, I mean, like I don't really necessarily need to, like you saw me in earlier videos, I'm using the app in order to plan my day for this app. But the thing is that because this is my first time developing this piece of software, I wasn't always exactly sure what I need to do. So, all right, we got Gemini Firebase, yes, check. So we got Gemini here, and then with a bunch of actual items. Okay, here we are. And then we got Firebase Studio over here. All right, so that's the app. That's what we're doing right now. I'm doing like I have another YouTube channel called Promenade Française. I'm doing these videos. I'm watching like French videos, and then I'm doing an exercise. We're doing a challenge. I've done 45 days in a row of making videos. We got 45 more days to make videos. My French is improving. With my French tutor, we read the Book of Mormon in French, and we're also watching reading French news. So basically, I'm spending I would say about an hour and a half every day on French language exercises. We read for an hour. The tutor reads, and then I repeat, and then she reads, and I repeat. And I usually have the French on one side of the screen, and then I have the English on the other. Yeah, there's a guy named Peter Mansbridge from Canada. He's like the most famous, well-known journalist in Canada, and he has like a little newsletter that he sends out called the Buzz. Buzz. Peter Mansbridge. The Buzz. Peter Mansbridge. All right, so it's some kind of newsletter. Every Here it is. So every Saturday, I subscribe to this, and every Saturday he sends out like the articles that he thinks are the most influential and most on point for the issues that people are thinking about and talking about. And I don't know, I think he's probably the most trusted. Although I would have to say that when I was younger, I didn't really know the difference between a liberal and a conservative. But now that I've gotten older, I can hear like, okay, I see. So he's leaning a little bit to one side. Um, which is fine. He has like a it's like a Kux Gazette. He's got like this podcast. So usually I listen to the Apple podcast, and then in some cases, because he also a lot of these issues are your turn. See, okay, so yeah, for example, in this case, I don't think this one has a YouTube video, so I'll just click the play, listen to the podcast, and yeah, it's interesting. Whoa, I can hear. And it's interesting because, like, this guy, he knows every single person in Canada, in, like, in the news and in the politics and likely in the business world, because he's watched it all change over, like, his whole career. He's got one of the longest careers in Canada, and still has a successful podcast. So who else are you gonna listen to? Like, I don't know. I don't think like, it's non-defensible. You have to listen to this guy. So and then what I've been doing, like, I'm trying to get a handle on. Well, I haven't started this yet, the writing exercises. I'm trying to get a handle on the news in Canada. Like, I've spent my life traveling. Like, I lived in China for 10 years and I learned Chinese. And then I went to law school in China. And then I worked for a couple of international law firms. And then I had some problems trying to understand, like, well, how do I do business? What is this thing called business? So then I moved to Silicon Valley. That's where I met Tom. And that's where, like, I started to read Tom's book. And as I started reading this book, it was like, wow, okay, so this is like it's like rewiring my brain. And but I could see it was difficult for me to understand. So I wanted to grow my coaching career. Well, before I did that, I actually went to film school in Hollywood. I lived in Hollywood for a year, and this is after I got divorced. So, I was going kind of like losing my mind. My my ex-wife decided to move back to China. She didn't want to stay in North America. And I couldn't go back to China because although I had a law degree in China, I didn't have a law degree in Canada. And so my career was kind of sputtering out. They said, hey, listen, we can't make you a partner. You can't actually manage your own clients unless you have some certificate. Like, you have to have a license from somewhere. So that's when they're like, why don't you move into business development? And I was like, all right. So I started doing business development. I couldn't really understand the nuances of business because I studied law and I understood how to do legal research and how to understand a problem and how to come up with solutions. But that doesn't necessarily mean the same thing about, like, how do you manage people? How do you manage projects? Basically, what that means, like, what I've come to understand through working with Tom's work and all of the and then also communicating with people is that, every business has three functions. So when I worked as a lawyer, then I was a clerk. I was following orders and rules. Somebody gave me a little thing to do, a little processing of a transaction, a little paperwork. I did the paperwork, I handed it in, and I was done. Then for the last couple of years, well, less, 10 years that I've been working on this project, I've been a teacher, which is to some extent is also a clerk. But as I've communicated with people, um, I've been presenting thinking tools and thinking frameworks. And so I've been working in this area of thinking frameworks and data analysis. And I would say that in journalism, probably likely that's where I'm going to be for a little while because I've been reading not Tom, I've been reading uh, Mr. Mansbridge's work and the stuff that he recommends to read. And then I'm trying to understand, like, the perspective of the Canadians. So after I left the US and with Tom's book, I decided to move to Russia. And because I found a job, I was teaching in a pharmaceutical company, these, mostly these business ideas. And I was communicating with real people. So it was a fascinating experience to be able to hang out in the conference rooms in Novartis in the headquarters in Moscow and also learn Russian. So then from there, eventually I moved to Saudi Arabia for a little bit. So I was working with some engineering students. And then from there, the pandemic started, and I ended up going to Belarus for a year studying Russian. and then I started kind of like my online gig. I was able to find people to teach, and then that's when I kicked it into like super gear, where I was like meeting one or two new people a week. And I've been doing that for like the last 4 years. That's why I've met so many people. I've talked to like 400 people. It's because I found a place where I could find coaching clients. And now we're here. So now I'm living in a little village out in Georgia where I can have a low cost environment where I can continue to pursue all of my interests. So, and now I need to start moving into the like making decisions. Like, what's the vision and what's the direction of the company? How are you going to manage people and processes with infrastructure? So, the first thing I had to do was I had to create the infrastructure, and that's what this Fire Studio project is all about. Is I've developed an infrastructure so I can manage people and processes. Now it's a little bit like two-tiered idea because like the actual process that I'm managing is the process of developing the infrastructure develop to manage people and processes, right? The actual infrastructure which I'm managing, no, the infrastructure which I'm now developing is no, the process, the the people and processes that I'm now managing with infrastructure is the creation of infrastructure. Gordon, what are you doing? So, excuse me. So, anyways, as you can see, this is what usually what happens in business is you start from the right hand side and you slowly move over to the left. And like I've said in other videos, like the way that you create wealth is the ownership of processes, and it's the ability to manage people to that are going to engage in those processes. So if you can develop infrastructure that, I mean, either you're going to be using people or you're going to be using infrastructure. Either way, it doesn't matter. You're trying to automate processes. And I felt like, okay, so this brings us back to when I first moved to Silicon Valley because I'm trying to create a process with infrastructure. All right. So I got all these things that I'm doing. I got two Russian language lessons per week. Yeah. So here it's like, yeah, I've been reading the articles. I've been making some X comments, just trying to get the hang of this experience of like reading journalism, reading news articles. And at some point, we need to move into the next stage, which is writing exercises. Right now, they're just 100 and 240 characters, but eventually they have to be paragraphs, and eventually they have to be like complete articles, complete thoughts. And at some point, I have to be able to actually move the needle on some topics, some important subjects. And yeah, there's some books, that I've been looking into. Uh, yeah, so this is all the stuff that I do. This is like my regular day. This is who I am. This is what I do. Kind of pretty simple stuff. Oh, dang, I forgot. I also have this Duolingo situation. Uh-oh. No, no. Okay. So this is kind of where I'm at. And like I said, I can't use the Arrowhead app. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, can you set up the app in environment and launch it in a tab in Chrome. So my assumption is it's going to open up something. So what I'm going to do now is I want to migrate. First of all, I want to let these flies go outside, and I also need to sneeze. All right, we're back. Got the window open, so the flies can go outside. All right, let's run this terminal command. All right, probably what's going to happen is it's going to run something. It's going to open up the browser over here in my Chrome browser. Now, I'm having a problem right now. So now we're in the development stage where I basically have the features of the app. Like if we go down to the bottom of the screen, you can see like, do we have choose? Yes. Brainstorm? Yes. Touch base? Yes. Objectives and the corresponding scoreboard? Yes. Objective, vision, main menu, profile? Yes. We got everything. And we're in the debugging process. But the thing is that, I mean, yeah, debugging is actually really simple. Like it's not complicated at all. So, for example, we go to the objectives, and then what's the objective? What objective do you want to talk about? This and that. And then we go back, and then we go back in here. I should say this and that. Oh, what is it? Okay, it's not saving the data. And then look, if I take this to the top and then I go out, let's just do the first line. All right, so we want to say hi and hello. We want to add a task. The task is do this. It's not assigned. Let's assign it to Blaine. The date is needs to be done by tomorrow. And then we're going to edit the status. We're going to put in a new option called Okie dokie. And then we're going to add a task and we're going to say do that. And it's going to be into Okie dokie and Smoky. Now we're going to go down and save it. We go out. What's that? It's all gone. So we got some debugging issues, definitely. So I'm using the objectives and scoreboard module, and none of the data is being saved. Neither the text input boxes nor the text boxes in the scoreboard nor the tabs added, and not the additional status options. Nothing is being saved to the data tables. All right. Now, so the question now is, okay, so what are you going to do? Like, how are you actually going to do this? How are you going to make this part of your life? And, well, so the testing, see, the thing is, I have a benefit that other people don't have, which is I created software based on my experiences with real people. All of those things I just showed you, like those student files, all these student files are real people with whom I taught Create Crucial Insight, and also how I was able to develop this online course. And also I was finally able to develop these modules within this piece of software. All of it's based on real working with real people. And guess what? I have the added benefit, since I still have all of these, not all, but I still work with a lot of these people. And I also have a business which constantly brings in new students, which means that I can continue to test this piece of software with the real people. I have real people to test this software on, people who have real projects and who really want to make a difference in their life. So I have coaching clients. Now I'm introducing a piece of software which I can use while I'm talking to them, which makes it kind of an issue because so now the question is this: is each of these humans, are these all going to be projects? And then the other question is like, well, what about my project? So which of these projects do I need to actually use my app to do? Do I need to do it with my French challenge? I mean, I could. Not really, because I'm not like being super crazy about it. Like basically I watch a video every couple of days. I do an exercise every day. I do a little Duolingo each day. I make a video each day. So do I need to do like a touch base on what's going on? Do I need to do a touch base, or do I need to talk about the objective of my French my pursuit of the French language? Not really. It's just kind of I just do it. And then my French tutor, do I really need to have like it's more of a habit. We just read and then she reads and repeats. So I would say within this area, I don't really need my app. And then I already tried to use the app. Remember a couple of videos ago where I was using my own thinking tools in order to talk about the development of this thinking tool? So, like, I just found it wasn't very useful because, I mean, it goes back to this idea here. And this is the problem I have when I start coaching people. You're going to have like one or two, or maybe at most five experiences together. And then they're just going to be like, well, I'm not a manager and I'm not trying to be creative and I'm not trying to find a solution. I just want to like talk about something very specific in my area of business. And then you start to realize that like they follow standard processes. And if you don't know their standard process, then it's going to be like, it's kind of useless to coach them. Test scenario again. So it wants me to test the scenario again. All right, we'll jump into project one. We go into what's that. First thing I want to do is I just want to check the positioning. Go back in. All right, so the position of the scoreboard and objective text boxes doesn't stay the way I leave it when I navigate away from the page. All right, we're talking about this. So that's what happens is I know like what's going to happen based on what level of person I'm talking to. Now, to some extent, I talk to a lot of analysts and I've talked to a lot of coaches, and at first I think that we have pretty good constructive experiences. But then at some point they usually they don't want to tell me what's happening. They're like, "Well, I don't really, I can't, like, I don't have a, I haven't a non, whatever it's called, non-compete or non-disclosure agreement. I can't actually tell you next steps. Focus on this issue. I can't actually tell you what's happening in our business." See, well, okay. So my question is, what can we do? We can't talk about what can we do unless you tell me about what's happening, right? You have to start with what's happening. What do we have to work with? That's what the analyst and the coach is interested in. So they're going to be communicating with the technicians, the clerks, and the librarians. They're going to be asking them questions. The analyst, they're going to be asking a lot of questions to figure out what's happening and what do we have to work with. Then the analyst is going to go to the manager. And what's the manager going to ask? The manager is going to ask, what can we do? How can we do it? And how sure are we? So the analyst will give them that information. And then the manager is going to go to the executive. The executive is going to ask, have we double checked potential solutions? Because after the manager makes a decision, I mean, after the manager considers what other people have advised them to do, then they have to make a decision based on their own experiences. So that's called double checking. And then, of course, the manager makes a decision. Now, in the decision making process, the analyst is providing the data, and then the coach is providing the thinking tools and the frameworks for how should we think about this particular problem. And at the end of the day, that person's going to make a decision. All right. So, right now I'm just testing this app, and I don't really need to like use I already have the frameworks in my head, first of all. Second of all, I don't have data. So there's a possibility that I'm going to need to change, like based on an analyst, based on like what is happening and what we have to work with. I may have to work with an analyst in order to make some changes in the software. But at this point, I don't have enough data. I don't need to hire an analyst to analyze the data. What I need to do is just build the thing. And which means I'm being a technician actually. And if I'm being a technician, then I don't need manager tools to be a technician. Whenever you think about like who needs this app, it's always going to be somebody who's a manager. Means somebody who somebody who's working with these people, and maybe likely also in my French challenge, it's the same thing. I don't need to be making section. Mhm. The stuff we saved. Good stuff. All right. So it looks like it saved the information, but it just didn't. It wasn't showing it. All right. Let's change the name of this. Who dat? Add a task. The other one. We still have okay. Let's put it in progress. Assigned. Let's delete this one. Let's change this size and go out. Go back in. Uh huh. Okay, I made change to the objective field. It was saved. Scoreboard content is saved and even showed the stuff I wrote before, but which I thought wasn't saved. So I guess it was saved but not displayed before. Uh, but the up down feature of the objective module isn't working when I leave and come back. The objective text boxes are always at the top. Right? I think that's what's happening. Yeah, it's definitely what's happening. Let's save it. Go at and come back in. Oh, wait. Wait. It worked this time. Now, what if I change it and then I go out and then I come back in and then I move this and I go out and I come back in? Jeez. Okay. Okay, All right. Anyways, like I said, I got to go. So maybe the news situation, there may be something I can do there to start to plan something. Russian language and reading. So most of the stuff I already have like habits of what I need to do. I'm not actually doing management functions. So that's the key. It's like you actually have to manage something before you can use the app. So Blaney Bobs, what are you gonna manage? It's a good question. It's like, what are you managing? How can you create a business to manage? Meaning what? I mean managing people and processes. So that only basically right now the only thing I have is my coaching business, and it means that I need to start putting students into my app. And which brings us back to the first point, which is the project. Okay, interesting. Maybe objective, maybe one project could be one student, and then a student. There's a lot of different businesses that I'm talking to, and then we can use different objectives for the objectives that they're working on. The other idea I was thinking of is maybe having project folders where I could put more than one project into a folder. All right, that's good for today. Thanks for joining me. We'll talk to you later.